you can, and I've just for time purposes, I've kind of populated the raw basics here to get us going. So this is where you can build a route. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried with the Excel DFT tool when it came out, and understands how impossible that is to kind of create a timetable, even of the most basic level, without knowledge of Excel and having to kind of look up things in Google that might not be accurate and all this sort of stuff. And this tool really just removes a lot of those pain points. So what we have here is you have to put in things like the service code, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, route description, route number, and other bits and pieces like that. And what I'm going to show you then, which is the bit that I personally like about this more than anything else, is the ability to quickly map your route out. So I'm just going to do a couple of dummy stops on this pretend route. So we've started in Hemel Hempstead because that's just where this operator was. And I'm just going to quickly show you how you can map the stops. So it's as simple as that.
So you've got the naptan right in there, all preset, and you can pick from those.
All the naptans are in there. You can see which side of the road the bus stops are on, which is something that when you're using the other tool, it's quite difficult. Particularly if you've got a route that goes sort of anti-clockwise or clockwise, sometimes the descriptions in naptan, when you're looking at it in the naptan data itself, aren't particularly clear to working out which side of the road something's on. So this kind of removes some of that, those errors that I was getting where you'd kind of configure something and then someone say, oh, actually that bus stop's on the wrong side of the road, or it's actually around the corner or something like that. So you can actually kind of pinpoint where the bus stops are. I'm just going to put four stops on here just for demonstration's sake, and we'll terminate it there. Right, so we've built this route now, and next thing we're going to go and do all sorts of the BODS-y type stuff. So as we know, every bus stop needs to have some sort of status, whether it's a timing point or another bus stop. So this is where you can configure those sorts of things. So we'll call that one a principal timing point, and that's where it's going to end. And we'll put in, again, this is things that helps BODS, but also helps things like real-time information. So if you've got this stuff in here, if you've got RTI schemes, you can just kind of give the transit exchange file to your RTI provider, and they can just load it, and then it matches with your timetables without having to do these things twice. I don't know if you've had the struggle of having to provide two sets of information when you're trying to interact with real-time information schemes.
Yeah, I think that's quite a common problem when
it's certainly one that we've come across with some of the operators we've dealt with. So we'll put in the destination here, and then to build your timetable, you just then need to put in the running time between each stop. So this is slightly laborious, but
I'm sure we could make a slight improvement.
And that, I mean,
you know, if DFT, do contract, I think there is room for a few slight.
There are they're little things that will make this a bit more streamlined. But coming from where potentially small operators are now having to grapple with that spreadsheet to this is revolutionary in my view. So we've put in our run times, and then we're going to add in the trips. And here you say, right, this journey is going to run Mondays to Fridays. We're not going to run on bank holidays. There's an interesting thing here with BODS. I don't know if Norman or Chris or Chris have come across this thing with Scottish bank holidays in your configurations, where the nature of how the BODS thing validates, you have to be very careful. If we're saying here it's not running a Scottish bank holidays, we need to then make sure that we put those operational dates in here so that it's going to run on an English bank holiday. And that's something that I've kind of tripped over a few times.
Yeah. We're aware of the Boxing Day conundrum particularly, which is similar to that. Some do, some don't. New Year's Day, some do, some don't.
Yeah. But at least with this, you've kind of got visibility, so you can actually kind of manipulate it a little bit easier than you can. You can then put in things like your block numbers or your running numbers or whatever for each journey. And
which for a small operator is quite simple normally.
This is quite simple.
Buses there, 1, 2 or 3.
Yeah, if you've got a school run, the bus goes out, does the school run in the morning, comes back in the afternoon. It's very simple. And again, that's to aid with the kind of AVL trip matching side of things as well. Also, you need to make sure that in here we have this, and this is something that doesn't appear in the DFT's Excel tool. And this helps the BODS matching side of stuff as a double check to ensuring that the journey that's selected is actually the journey from the timetable. So that your AVL matching works. Okay, so that's that. So we have those bits of information, and then we will then go over here. And we can see now we've constructed that journey. Those are the stops. We've got a block number, we've got our run days, and we've got our times. And it really is as simple as that. I mean, okay, this is just a quick example. You can do quite clever things with this as well. So let's say, for example, this journey runs on school days only. You can set up school days and non-school day dates. So there's some I prepared earlier. So if you've got school day, non-school day variations on a route, you can then define this is when it runs, this is when it doesn't run, which is quite useful.
Compliant with the kind of data standard, isn't it? The PTI profile, as it's known. So helpful to make sure you can comply.
So we've just quite simply we've added those into there. I can say, okay, it's running Monday to Friday, and I want it to run on the school days that I have defined, and I don't want it to run on St Andrew's Day, which this year happens to be the 1st of December. I know you know that because I've been busily configuring hundreds and hundreds of these things over the last few weeks.
If at any point Wayne had made a mistake, just kind of, because you don't make any mistakes, you haven't shown this yet, but if he were to make a mistake that would ruin the ability for the file to be interpreted and uploaded and compliant and validated, it would have told him at the time. So you wouldn't have been able to save it, or it would have said, look, first do this. Yeah.
So, and
which is quite helpful when you're new.
Which is quite helpful. And in here, it has a validation button as well. So you can pick up on anything that obvious that you might have missed throughout all of that. And then all we then do is publish. And that publishes the timetable. And then you download your Trans Exchange file.
Right. Mm-hmm. There's no reason really that we couldn't integrate that into a URL as well, you know, to make it publishable quicker. Sorry, Wayne. Yeah. We need a contract, but you know, these are the things that like will just become super easy. So awesome.
So while that's my notepad's taking it a while, and you should be able to have a look at the timetable before you send it. So I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of make sure that the running times are okay, the run days are fine. So there's all these kind of little extra things that kind of give you the assurance that before you kind of submit it to BODS, it's actually correct.
Yeah, just because we've got one vehicle journey there, but obviously it would look like a full matrix for anyone when it's a full timetable.
So I think that was my intention, just to do a quick run through of how, I know that's a very simple example, but how the tool can make this job slightly easier.
What do we think? Craig, Craig, I'm interested because I know you're less likely to use this. You're more likely just to help us be a wonderful advocate. What do you think just from seeing that?
It looks relatively straightforward. A lot of it's similar to the way you put stuff in Ticketer, which is probably the way that we're programmed to do stuff now. The thing that we can't do at the moment is, and where we fall down with the BODS stuff, is the blocks. So we have no way of anybody doing that, because BODS presumes that the way we do it is we have driver's duties.
Yeah.
So Ticketer rather than vehicle running boards. So BODS can't understand that. It can only understand vehicle running boards. So I suppose, obviously if you put in a timetable and put in what follows and what's the journey before off your running board onto the timetable, then that's going to work quite well. It looks fairly straightforward, to be fair. And putting stuff in off a map is a damn sight easier than trying to look up
NAPTAN codes and trying to look at Google. Because sometimes the stuff. I constantly come across situations, particularly like in rural areas, where you would have a NAPTAN entry in the NAPTAN database for an on-the-marked stop, say. The post box by the village green, that sort of thing, but that does not show up in when you look at Google or OpenStreetMaps, because it's not a marked stop. But there is an entry in there in the NAPTAN hail and ride. That's another kind of.
They appear. One of the annoyances that I've got with that is that they appear, and nobody tells us that they've been put in as a NAPTAN.
Yes.
We've got lots of hail and ride stuff, and there are no physical stops. And then I get something saying that we're missing this stop on such and such a. I don't even know it's been added on, because it wasn't there when I put when I entered it all to start off with. Yeah. So seeing on a map is a damn sight. Certainly for people who are not computer literate, that's a lot easier, isn't it? It
just makes it a lot easier. When I first was introduced to this, having gone through the pain of the Excel tool and all the problems that brought, I think it halved the amount of time it took to do, a simple school route that had like a morning and afternoon journey and maybe a couple of variations because the school finished early on a Wednesday and did something different on a Friday. Those sorts of things do happen. It takes sort of 3 or 4 hours to get that ready, whereas it was like an hour once you've had all the information. So
the thing I think is it's probably actually easier using your tool than putting it in on Ticketer, but then it would be useful if it could then be exported to Ticketer. Adherence on Ticketer, so they could actually use the information from yours rather than have to do it twice. I mean, that seems easier to me.
Possible.
Ticketer.
I mean, I would have thought, can you not import TXT files into Ticketer? I can't.
Yeah, you can.
And they can export them from Ticketer.
You can export them.
I don't know. I've never tried. You probably can. Norman probably knows better than me.
I think you can. Yeah, I think you can import them. But that's not to say that they have their own kind of ways of doing things. So
they might.
You can import the file, but they might not take like the service code because they've already got a service code in their data model. So stuff like that. But they're generally pretty good. Okay, cool. That's really useful. And I guess from there, what we're seeing is that this is useful for the target market, which is I'm an operator. I'm not very confident technologically. This is a tool where, people can collaborate. So, if one of Wayne's operators wanted to be more heavily involved, you can have the same workspace and it's kind of hierarchical.
So this is a workspace here where so if Jim was around and he didn't want to get involved in it, which is why he asked us to help him out, but he could look here as well and see what I was doing.
Chris, I know this is your bread and butter. or some of your bread and butter. Tell me, what do you think? You know, you've never seen the system before, completely fresh eyes. How did it feel to you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Ewan deals with timetables here, but some of the things I have recent problems with is service codes with multiple routes on. So would this support multiple routes on the same registration?
On the same registration, yes. Yes.
And would that produce separate ones?
Let me where shall I go for that? Let me show you an example we have of that. STC. So we've got star cabs. We've got, there's 901, 902, 903, 904. So they're all circulars that go figure of eights all around different days of the week. And you can add, so they're all in the same, as you can see, they're all in the same license. We've added the multiple lines for all on the same license, and they're all configured. We can, if I'll show you the journeys. So we've got, I don't know if you can see there. So we've got all the different line numbers and all the different individual journeys and what days of the week they run. So this supports that. And I think how I slightly cheated with this one because I was trying to do it in a hurry, because again they were kind of in a situation where they were needing to be compliant. So I basically downloaded from Travelline the Trans Exchange trial that was in Travelline, imported into here, and then tidied it up for all the bits that was needed.
That makes me so happy, Wayne.
Yeah, so I mean, you can that and sometimes that kind of is the quickest way to do stuff if a route's changed or something.
Because that's the thing, is that, you know, at any point, if someone wants to take their data from this, you know, way of creating it and putting it in a different software, that's the whole point.
That's the whole point, because the whole point of
that's the whole point.
It's supposed to be a standard that you can move around.
Yeah.
So that situation with as you described, Chris, where you've got sort of 5 or 6 or 7 different routes on the same registration, this can deal with that.
Yeah.
And next question is the running time. Where you put the running time in, we've got some routes that has got different running time between the same stops, different times of day.
Different times of day, yeah. So that's also easily dealt with. So for each, I'll go back to my example. Little gyms, and it's this one. So we've put them in for that journey, and then we can quite happily, let's edit the service, that's better. Get back to the journey. We can copy this journey. And we can then override those defaults and put different times in.
Yeah, because it's not the same all times of day. Is that sort of the major point? Yeah. So we are just at time, but if everyone's just got 1 or 2 more minutes just to sort of round out, I would appreciate that. If not, I do completely understand if you need to drop off.
So I don't know if you can see here, that was our original journey. That was 8 minutes, and this one is 17.
17, yeah.
So it's really as simple as that.
Yeah.
That was a quick way of doing it. There was another way of doing it, but I did the quick way just for the
purposes.
For the purposes of the time.
We're coming to close, just few minutes just to make sure that we're kind of where we aligned, where we're not. Norman, I guess coming to you, slightly different perspective, you're business owner, kind of leader within the industry for your kind of operations. What do you think about solving the problem of helping getting this this last sort of 25% of operators on board really truly supporting them to maintain? How do you feel seeing this, hearing the discussions?
I think the quick answer is, if only we'd had this when we started the process 2 or 3 years ago. It looks as if it's obviously perhaps the result of learning about where we've gone wrong up to now, and by we I mean the industry. I suspect that the major players in the industry, and roughly those who are involved in OPDI in that sense, probably have robust systems in place, but they don't constitute the 25% of the industry who appear to be non-compliant. Equally, it wouldn't be ridiculous to suppose that one of the big groups might want to latch onto something that does the job more easily and has learned the lessons from years of trial and error. But OPDI I see as an overarching group to a degree, although we try to attend, and we're the only smaller operator, I think, that regularly participates in the monthly meetings. The CPT meeting that Gavin hosts roughly monthly has the benefit of much the same audience as OPDI in terms of government. But by government, I mean DVSA, DFT, and Traffic Commissioner, and so on. And I would have thought that because Craig and I are both CPT members, we could persuade Gavin to host a demonstration, because it would be useful for the sort of audience who include the compliance side in the CPT, I call it the CPT BODS meeting. With Album, I think I said to you the other day that the people like Craig and I who attend the managing directors meetings are tending to look at big picture stuff. A lot of our current attention is on franchising, on the bill and so on, and rightly so. And we're
damn right
at that stage, because at the end of the day, you don't leave too much to government. Look what happened with BODS. But Album has an operations group who are the people who are more hands-on and who may or may not be aware of this. Now, typically, the Album membership is, in many cases, larger operators. Lothian is one of the biggest operators in the UK and is an Album member, for example.
I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Album is basically everybody who's not in the big groups who wants to join. But typically, I'm certainly at the smaller end of the operations of the Album membership. I don't know that there's a typical member, but basically, I suppose it's people like Craig and I who are really interested in the industry and who want to speak to our colleagues in a way that means we can share information without any, shall we say, competition issues. So our Album is certainly it's the SME end of the industry, but it ranges in size from huge to mini. But I think the operations group at Album would probably be a target for this. Another one would be something.
Making an introduction, or for that with Album, would that be something you'd be comfortable doing?
I don't see any problem in me doing that at all. I mean, at the end of the day, perhaps Album more than OPDI, Album members typically are wanting to do the best for their business. They are the owners or the principals in their business, and therefore they really want to do anything that improves their business, particularly if it's cost effective.
Good point.
The other target, of course, is the local authorities. And now when we talk about local authorities, and Craig knows more about this than I do, the franchising authorities who may well, I don't have any detailed knowledge, who may well take all this sort of workload away from the operators, because at the end of the day, they are specifying the service. The operators only have to turn it into something that works for them in crew scheduling terms rather than timetable scheduling terms. I'm not trying to simplify it, but trying to think where the target is. Local authorities like Kent.
Oh, well, you're completely on the money. Absolutely. I think, especially because the responsibility for data then lies with the organization that is doing the
specifying.
Exactly. And that is for the business, from like a us perspective, that is sort of our aim, is to help create something that helps everyone work together
Yeah.
to deliver it.
The trouble is, not with the system, but with the principle that really no operator of a once-a-day school run, or maybe the occasional, shall we say, market day service, typically in the parlance, is really going to want to be bothered with even the simple demonstration that we've had today. It's not in the genes of a lot of the 25% you've talked about who operate bus services. For someone like us, I run 30 buses day in, week out. They're out all day. We're not at the small end of the SME market in the sense we're in the middle, and something like this would several years ago have aided the way that we got to where we are now.
Absolutely.
If it's as simple as Wayne has demonstrated, then that looks to me as if that should ring the right bell in the department to make sure that this is available in one way or another to capture that other 25%.
I just want to say about that other 25%. We were recently approached by somebody in a panic. They had DVSA visit them. They operate sort of like 17 or 18 home to school services which weren't registered for various reasons, and DVSA said, look, you need to get these sorted on BODS. You need to get them registered and then get them BODS. And so the problem they've got is that they're a coach operator that do coach tours and sightseeing trips and all sorts of other things in coaching with the school runs on the side, and so they're not going to want to spend £2,000 or £3,000 for a ticketing machine to put on their coach, because for 190 days a year. So it's just trying to find different solutions for those operators, and that tends to be most of the people I end up helping, those who do home to school runs and the market day things, Norman, that you mentioned as well, who suddenly, when they have a compliance visit, suddenly find themselves in this situation where they have to do something to avoid going to see the traffic commissioner, basically.
Yeah, and I've got a list of about 100 operators in that situation, and a list of about 100 more who've at some point got a file on BODS but are not maintaining it. So, there's a few hundred operators out there who are a bit nervous right now. It's probably worth saying, obviously, the way that I'm intending to commercialize this is to sell it to DFT. Like, the aim is not to get operators or local authorities well, maybe local authorities, but not to get operators to have to pay a lot of money for this. Obviously, if they don't engage, we will try that route, but ultimately it's not going to be a successful route. I mean, Wayne and I have already had this conversation. It's not the way to go. The way to go is for about 2% of the total BODS budget to date, they can have this tool for a year. So we're talking about a really reasonable investment from DFT here. And that's kind of why I'm hoping that if we can all get together, what we need from everyone is not money. We need support to get DFT to do the right thing, and not put the burden back on operators, because it has been in the fabric of BODS that the right tools and software for the static data would be supplied from day dot. And for those in the room, this has actually been available for the last 3 years, and we have been having this conversation with DFT. Just for some reason, I think because of like procurement going on until very recently, they just never got it over the line. So yeah, I think they can change their mind. I think this is a real opportunity. So I really appreciate everyone being involved. Are there any final comments, any final questions, anything you want to know? Final opportunity, I guess.
Are you going to send us a copy over to play with then?
If you want a coffee, you can have a coffee. Everyone can have a coffee. Yeah, sure. I'll get you a login set up, and I'll get one for Chris, Norman, and Ewan as well.
Yeah, we may be a bit slow on the uptake on this one, because I'd quite like Ewan to play with it, but he's got another nearly 2 weeks off, unfortunately. Luckily for him.
Yeah. Hey, look, if we manage to sell it to DFT in the next 2 weeks, then I'd be doing my job way too well. So don't worry, there's plenty of time. I think our approach at the moment is just get it out there and get a group of us together to kind of knock on the door. I do also need to rely on, because obviously now I'm a vendor, I do need your help as a kind of community to let me in the rooms with operators and get them doing the, hey, DFT, we need this. We all know they do, but got to do it right. Well,
Okay, thank you.
no, thank you all. I really, really appreciate your time. It does take all of us to kind of make these things happen, and I know it can be incredibly frustrating that the obvious thing isn't done. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone's attitude here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, then. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
How do we stop the recording?